I have discovered a person who truly deserves my attention. Once upon a time, there was a man named Grant Hartley. At 44, I find myself a commercial architect based in Savannah, Georgia, seated in my home office gazing at an email from my wife, with whom I've shared 12 years of marriage. Serena was said to be at a yoga retreat in Arizona. It was 11:22 p.m. on the clock. Her time. Your inheritance has been transferred to my personal account. It's for the best. A photo was attached, fuzzy. She stood on the balcony alongside a man sporting a beard. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow behind them. Chalices filled with the rich crimson liquid. Her smile was a beacon of warmth, unlike any she had offered me in years. With a gentle click, I shut my laptop and made my way to the kitchen, filled a glass with water. I gazed out at the backyard we had transformed together 3 summers prior. As she planted hydrangeas along the edges, I laid the stone path. All that effort poured into a home she seemingly had no desire to return to. The sum of $587,000 from my Aunt Elaine was more than mere cash. It symbolized the woman who had welcomed me into her home after the loss of my parents when I was just 14, who had toiled through double shifts at the hospital to ensure I could attend college. Someone had entrusted me with everything, leaving behind just a single, simple note. Create a legacy that endures. As I glanced down at my phone, there were no missed calls, no messages inquiring whether I had checked the email. Only silence lingered in the air. It was as if she had seamlessly transitioned into a new chapter of her life. For months, the signs had quietly lingered, waiting to be noticed. Serena found herself hosting yoga retreats with increasing regularity. What began as 2 days gradually transformed into 4, eventually evolving into week-long adventures. Her phone lay face down on the tables. The passwords have been changed, conversations condensed. 3 months prior, she had posed peculiar inquiries regarding the inheritance. Where precisely the money lay hidden? Which accounts are we discussing? Should we consider diversifying the locations where it was held? I nodded in agreement. I mentioned that I would consider it. I opened the laptop once more. Take a moment to revisit the email. It struck me that she hadn't even taken the time to say hello, or my name. Only the proclamation and the heist. I composed a response of 6 words. I appreciate you keeping me informed. With a final click, I shut the laptop, drained the last of my water, and made my way to bed. Tomorrow loomed ahead, promising to stretch into a long, winding journey. Yet as I sat there in that expansive king-size bed, a realization washed over me, one that ought to have stirred some discomfort, but curiously, it did not. With the knowledge that she wouldn't be returning, I found a deeper sense of peace in my sleep. Unbeknownst to Kendra, I had felt an unsettling presence for months now. The inheritance had always eluded her grasp, and in her futile attempt to claim it, she unwittingly bestowed upon me all that I ever desired. 15 years ago, I crossed paths with Serena at an industry conference held in Charlotte. In the midst of her journey to launch a wellness brand, she sought out architects to bring her vision of a physical space to life. 5 years into my career, I found myself yearning for projects that transcended the mundane confines of office buildings and parking structures. In the span of 3 years, we exchanged vows and crafted a life together in Savannah, the city where my firm was based. We purchased the Craftsman on Victory Drive, complete with the wraparound porch she had always dreamed of. There are no children. It was her choice. She would often say, "The business is my baby." I grasped the concept. The structures I called my own were a reflection of my essence. For 8 years, everything flowed seamlessly. I crafted. She crafted her brand around organic products and wellness retreats. Our journey unfolded. We gathered around the table for dinner parties. We appeared impressive both in writing and in reality. It was then that my Aunt Elaine fell ill. Cancer, swift and unforgiving. In Atlanta, I embarked on a 6-month journey of partial leave dedicated to caring for her. Serena made 2 visits. She explained that hospitals depress her. I refrained from pushing it. Upon Elaine's passing, she entrusted all her belongings to me. I was taken aback by the money. I was completely unaware of the meticulous investments she had made throughout the years. Serena appeared taken aback, her interest in our financial planning igniting in a manner that was entirely new to her. We should put it toward expanding the business, she suggested one night over dinner. It was her business that was clear. I must ponder what Elaine would desire, I remarked. It marked the beginning of the fracture, petite yet noticeable. Others began to follow. Serena embarked on a journey venturing further afield for her research and supplier meetings. Her calls grew briefer, frequently accompanied by distant voices that fell silent whenever I inquired about her company. One afternoon, while Serena was away at a team retreat in Sedona, our neighbor Frank decided to pay us a visit. "Last week I caught a glimpse of someone dropping her off," he remarked with a casual air. "Wasn't it late? I was under the impression you had left the area." I had been. A 3-day conference unfolds in Boston. With gratitude, I expressed my thanks for the delightful homemade bread that his wife had graciously sent my way. Without posing any inquiries, it was simply tucked away. And so began the era of password changes. Banking apps found themselves locked, a situation that had never occurred previously. Discussions surrounding finances that came to an unexpected halt the moment I posed particular inquiries. One evening I stumbled upon her in the backyard, phone in hand, her voice a whisper, laughter spilling forth in a manner that felt foreign, a sound she no longer shared with me. "It was just Patricia from the studio," she announced as she stepped inside. Patricia, who had departed from the business 8 months prior. I nodded, refraining from correcting her, simply observing as she filled her glass with more wine and shifted the conversation to another topic. As the ground beneath us began to fracture, it became clear that only one among us was willing to speak the truth of our precarious situation. It was 2 weeks prior to Kendra's departure for what would ultimately be her last retreat when the financial advisor from my firm reached out. "Someone's been attempting to access information regarding your trust accounts," Calvin remarked, "utilizing your personal information yet failing to navigate the security protocols." "Which accounts?" I inquired, though I was already aware. "The funds from the inheritance. They attempted to use the last 4 digits of your social security number, yet they were unable to respond correctly to the security questions." After expressing my gratitude, I ended the call and found myself seated at my desk, lost in thought for what felt like an eternity. That evening, Serena inquired whether we could streamline our accounts. "It's silly to have so many separate logins and passwords," she remarked, her gaze avoiding mine. "It is essential that we bring everything together." "I suppose you have a point," I replied. "I shall have a conversation with Calvin regarding this matter." The following day, I set off for Atlanta, where I met with Naomi Wallace, the attorney who had represented my aunt for 2 decades and was now taking on my case as well. I laid out my concerns, clearly focusing solely on the facts devoid of emotion or blame. "Your aunt was wise to suggest the irrevocable trust structure," Naomi remarked thoughtfully after I had finished speaking. "Your finances remain secure no matter the circumstances surrounding your marriage. What would happen if someone attempted to transfer those funds without proper authorization?" Rita's expression grew steely. "Such actions would constitute an attempt at financial fraud, carrying evident legal repercussions." I gave a slight nod. "We should meticulously document every detail, and I envision establishing a monitoring system that will promptly alert us to any attempts to access, move, or alter anything concerning the trust." Upon my arrival home, I discovered that Serena had already prepared her belongings for the retreat. She pressed her lips to mine for a fleeting moment before turning away, her presence already fading. "I might extend this one," she remarked at the door. "Immerse yourself fully in the practice." I assisted in loading her bags into the car, observed as she drove off, and then returned indoors to open my laptop. I refrained from prying into her emails or texts, avoided reaching out to her friends, and steered clear of tracking her whereabouts. With a simple click, I accessed our shared cloud storage, the digital repository where we stored all our household documents. Within a folder marked Home Renovation Ideas, a project we had talked about embarking on, this year I discovered exactly what I needed: She had left behind documents that slipped her mind, screenshots capturing my accounts, copies of statements notes detailing transfer protocols, and a photo of a whiteboard filled with figures. There it was, my inheritance amount reduced by 20%, accompanied by a note that read, "Transfer fee explanation." For months she had been weaving her plans meticulously. I shut the folder and strolled through our home, adorned with thoughtfully selected furniture and artwork that narrated the tale of our crafted identities, and a peculiar sense of tranquility washed over me. The betrayal came as no surprise. What caught me off guard was how I reacted. Neither rage nor grief, but a sense of clarity. After many years, I finally glimpsed the true nature of our marriage. She was now ending a transaction, for a more lucrative opportunity had presented itself. That night I found myself in the guest room, and as dawn broke I began to make my calls. When her email finally landed in my inbox 5 days later, I had already set the wheels in motion. Once Kendra's email landed in my inbox, I held my breath for a full 24 hours, allowing the anticipation to build before I finally decided to make my first move. There was no emotional response, no frantic calls or texts, only a series of calculated steps taken with precision. Initially, I reached out to Calvin and Rita, sharing Kendra's email along with a brief note. Documentation has been requested. Both acknowledged the receipt. Neither required any additional clarification. In that moment, I picked up the phone and dialed Edward Webb, the divorce attorney Naomi had suggested months back during one of our many hypothetical discussions. That afternoon, a meeting was scheduled by his secretary. As the clock struck noon, Serena sent a text. "Have you had a chance to see my email?" I replied. "Indeed." "Is that truly all you have to say?" Moments later, her reply arrived. I chose silence in that moment. Instead, I made my way to Thomas's office downtown, where Naomi joined us via video call. As Edward sifted through the documents Naomi had sent over, he elaborated on how the attempted transfer left behind a paper trail. Numerous factors aligned to support your cause. The funds inherited and kept separate from marital assets within a carefully maintained trust structure have now become the subject of her open admission to attempting unauthorized access. "What comes next?" I inquired. "Initiate the divorce proceedings without delay, highlighting the issue of financial misconduct. In Georgia, the presence of fraud changes the landscape. It is not a no-fault state in such cases." Before departing from his office, I completed the necessary paperwork. As the clock struck 4:30 p.m., my phone buzzed to life, revealing Kendra's name, illuminated on the screen. "You're being childish," she remarked, in response to my answer. No salutation was offered. "There's no inquiry about your well-being." "It doesn't need to be complicated," I concur, I replied. "Let us approach this matter with maturity. The funds have already been transferred. Resisting it will only lead to further depletion of resources in the form of legal expenses. Where do you find yourself resting these days?" I inquired, shifting the conversation. She hesitated, caught off guard. "What significance does that hold? I'm simply wondering where home might be at this moment." "Miles, concentrate. It is essential that we engage in a conversation about the financial arrangements. I am in the process of having my lawyer prepare the settlement papers. Maintaining clarity is in our best interest." "Who is your legal representative?" I inquired. "Richard Lawrence. He is currently in the process of reviewing everything." I inscribed the name with careful thought. "That is quite helpful. Thank you very much." "Miles, are you truly paying attention? It doesn't need to be complicated. You've mentioned that before." I maintained a steady tone. "Your thoughtfulness in simplifying this is truly appreciated. Yet another moment of stillness. What are you up to?" "There is nothing to report at this moment." I suppose I'm acclimating to the notion. On the other end, I sensed her easing, mistaking my tranquility for surrender. "It's for the best," she said, her tone gentle and reassuring. "For years we have been charting our own separate paths. This approach is far more straightforward than prolonging the process. I concede you have a point. A cleaner approach is undeniably superior." Once our conversation ended, I reached out to Edward again and shared with him the details of Richard Lawrence. After that, I composed a solitary message and sent it off to Kendra. Allowing myself a moment to reflect, I'll get in touch when I'm prepared to dive into the details. Her response arrived without delay. Do not linger too long, the papers shall be prepared and ready for you by Friday. Friday, just 3 days ahead. Just the right moment. As the clock struck 6 p.m., Rita's voice rang through the phone. Today, the trust company has documented 3 distinct efforts to commence transfers from the trust accounts. Everything is meticulously documented and securely blocked. What about the monitoring system? Everything was captured. In the realm of digital interactions, one encounters IP addresses, login attempts, and the ever-constant timestamps that mark each moment of connection. The access location aligns perfectly with the origin of the email, Arizona Scottsdale, rather than Sedona. Naomi came to a halt. There's more to the story. Last month, the system identified some activity that raised suspicions. A person accessed account details and transfer protocols while connected to your home network. We possess timestamps along with device identifiers. With a sense of gratitude, I expressed my thanks before ending the call. Strolled through the vacant house that now seemed more like a testament than a sanctuary. In the kitchen, I uncorked the bottle of 20-year-old scotch we had been preserving for our 15th anniversary. He poured 2 fingers of liquid into a glass. Serena believed she had laid the perfect trap. Unbeknownst to her, she had stepped directly into one herself. As dawn broke, Richard Lawrence made his call. His tone carried a sense of professional caution. Mr. Hartley, I am here to represent your wife in the matter of your separation. She has suggested that you are open to a simple resolution. Did she really say that? A moment of pause. She said you grasped the situation. Could you clarify which situation you are referring to specifically? Yet another moment of stillness. Has she provided you with documentation regarding the division of assets, including the recent inheritance funds? She has offered her statements, he remarked with caution. Are there any recent ones, about 3 months back? I jotted down a note. What about the transfer confirmation? She has suggested that those will be coming soon from the bank. I understand. I maintained a steady tone. Did she happen to bring up the details of the inheritance structure, the irrevocable trust set up by my late aunt? Is it truly possible that what she claims to have accomplished is legally impossible? Quietude. Mr. Lawrence, it would be wise to confirm the information you've received before moving forward. Today, my attorney will be sending the relevant documentation to your office. Once the call ended, I made my way to Brightstone Bank, the place where Serena and I had entrusted our personal accounts for many years. 2 years prior, our mortgage refinancing had been deftly managed by Harold, the manager. After he welcomed me into his office, I explained that I needed to review recent activity on all joint accounts. Harold retrieved our information. As he navigated the screens, a change flickered across his expression. He noted that there have been considerable withdrawals over the past 3 months. How important is it? He pivoted the monitor in my direction. Consistent withdrawals from our shared account to an unfamiliar one. It began modestly with amounts like $2,000 and $3,500, but soon it started to rise. The latest amount, $47,000, was recorded 2 weeks ago. It exists outside Northern Lakes Credit Union. I had never come across it before. Could you please provide the transaction history for the last 6 months? As I sat there, anticipation building with each passing moment, a message from Edward lit up my screen. Lawrence is calling for an urgent meeting. The tone has undergone a notable transformation. As I made my way back to Thomas's office, the pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. 8 months prior, the Northern Lakes account had been established solely in Kendra's name. In the heart of Scottsdale, Arizona, there lay an apartment marked by the address provided. All withdrawals made from our joint accounts, $178,250. For some time now, Edward had been watching her construct a new life. As I continued to have access to mine, I added. As we sifted through the bank records, Thomas's assistant broke the silence, announcing that Richard Lawrence was on the line. I've received the trust documentation, Lawrence said, his voice taut with tension. Edward inquired whether my client might have misrepresented certain aspects of the financial situation. particularly regarding her ability to access or transfer those funds. It seemed to be true, Lawrence conceded. With this new information in mind, it seems prudent for everyone involved to come together and explore a revised approach. My client has already filed for divorce, citing financial misconduct, Edward replied. The documentation stands as a testament to its own clarity. Once the call concluded, Edward turned his gaze towards me. By the end of the day, he will have severed ties with her as a client. Not a single reputable attorney wishes to be linked to this. What of the funds she truly withdrew from the shared accounts? It will be incorporated into the filing. Record every detail. Allow her the opportunity to articulate to a judge the reasons behind her decision to create a concealed residence and methodically deplete marital assets. I nodded, a peculiar emptiness settling within me. The betrayal cut deeper than I had ever envisioned. This was not a decision made on a whim. It was a meticulous scheme crafted over countless nights as she lay beside me, shared meals with me, and envisioned our future together. There's something else I need to mention, I said. I must uncover his identity, neither for confrontation nor for the divorce proceedings. I found myself yearning to grasp the entirety of what had slipped through my fingers as I endeavored to construct what I believed was a shared existence. With a subtle nod, Edward acknowledged the moment. I will arrange for someone to investigate the matter. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sound of my doorbell echoed through the stillness of the evening. As I opened the door, there stood a courier, an envelope in hand. "Delivery for Grant Hartley," he announced. Within the envelope lay a letter from Richard Lawrence, a formal withdrawal of his role as Kendra's legal representative, with duplicates dispatched to both Serena and the court. A note from Edward was attached. It all began with the first domino. Moments later, my phone illuminated, revealing Kendra's name on the screen. I allowed it to slip into voicemail. After 3 more attempts at calling, she finally decided to send a text. "What on earth have you done?" I chose not to respond. As I sat at the kitchen counter savoring a sandwich, an email from Naomi popped up on my screen, its subject line straightforwardly stating, "Update." After thorough scrutiny, the trust company had wrapped up their investigation into the access attempts. Over the course of 3 months, they meticulously recorded numerous unauthorized attempts, each one carefully logged with corresponding IP addresses and timestamps. Attached was the report, accompanied by confirmation that they had referred the matter to their legal department for a potential criminal investigation. "No action required from you at this time," Naomi wrote. "However, take heed, for this path is now unveiled. All the information has been sent along to Thomas." As the clock struck 9 p.m., another message from Serena arrived. "It's time for a conversation. Now," I responded, "through your new attorney, once you have one. You've truly blown this out of proportion." In that moment, fury coursed through me as I hit send on that email. I didn't really shift anything at all. The access logs tell a different story. She lingered in silence, a long pause, stretching before her next message. "What are these access logs you speak of?" Rather than providing an answer, I posed a single question. Who might he be? 20 minutes slipped by. At long last. This is not about him. Name. Yet another extended silence lingered in the air, Jason though he holds little significance. Last name. In the heart of California lies Berkeley. He's merely a companion guiding me through this journey. Your attention is misplaced. I chose not to reply any further. I opted to look up the name instead. Discovered a Trevor Berkeley, an instructor at a yoga studio nestled in Scottsdale. Once an investment broker, as revealed by his LinkedIn profile. 3 years have passed since I departed from the financial sector, seeking instead to forge more meaningful connections. The following morning, I found myself in the company of Frank, our neighbor. "The guy you saw dropping Serena off," I began. "Would you be able to recognize him once more?" Frank gave a slow nod, a towering figure, facial hair. Behind the wheel of a grey Tesla, the journey unfolds. I presented to him the photograph that had arrived in Kendra's email. "Is this him?" He narrowed his eyes at the image. Indeed, that's the one. He had come by perhaps 5 or 6 times during your travels. I expressed my gratitude to him and inquired if he would be open to giving a statement. He nodded in agreement, his decision made without a moment's pause. At the stroke of 11 a.m. the phone rang, and it was Edward on the other end. A complication has arisen. Serena has brought Vincent Barnes on board. Barnes was known for his fierce approach to divorce litigation, costly yet impactful. He has sought an urgent hearing to challenge the allegations of financial misconduct. Edward pressed on. He claims that his client possesses proof that all financial decisions were thoroughly discussed and mutually agreed upon. When is the hearing scheduled to take place? It was a Monday morning. Just 3 days to go. As I pondered the apartment in Scottsdale, memories began to swirl in my mind. The account of the Northern Lakes. There was a man named Trevor who had entered my home during my absence. Let us present Barnes with a thought-provoking challenge, I remarked. That afternoon, Edward made his way to Barnes's office, carrying a package filled with copies of everything. The trust access logs reveal a trail of activity, while the bank records lay bare the systematic withdrawals. The apartment lease in Scottsdale stands as a testament to a connection, and Frank's notarized statement recounts Jason's visits with precision. Meanwhile, the screenshots from Kendra's home renovation ideas folder unveil her meticulous notes on how to access my accounts, painting a vivid picture of intent. As the clock struck 5 p.m., Edward found himself answering a call from Barnes, who was eager to arrange an urgent meeting to delve into settlement options. Afterward, Edward confided in me that he had seen enough. A clean split was offered. She retains what she has already acquired, laying no additional claims. You retain all that remains the house, and the entirety of the inheritance included, Counter, I said. She relinquishes half of what she withdrew from their shared accounts and affixes her signature to a non-disclosure agreement. I steer clear of the fraud angle. Edward arched an eyebrow, a flicker of curiosity crossing his face. There's a possibility for you to receive even more. I desire no more. I desire completion. On the morning that was meant for our emergency hearing, Serena and her attorney stepped into the courthouse, only to discover Edward already there, holding a settlement agreement that was ready and waiting. Without Barnes, there is neither a judge nor a public spectacle. As I sat in the consultation room, Edward began to articulate the terms with clarity. Serena would return $89,270, which was half of the funds withdrawn from their joint accounts within a span of 24 hours. She would assert no rights to the inheritance or any other possessions. She would commit to a non-disclosure agreement binding her to silence about our marriage and divorce, keeping those matters away from prying eyes and ears. In return, I would refrain from seeking any fraud charges concerning the attempted theft of trust funds. As I gazed through the glass walls, her face came into view, while Edward passed her the evidence file. Images captured, declarations made, records kept. Her expression transformed, moving from defiance to shock, and finally settling into a semblance of defeat. Her eyes flickered toward the room where I lingered, only to dart away in an instant. Barnes examined every detail, drawing near to murmur softly in her ear. She gave a slow nod. After a span of 10 minutes, they stepped into the room. My client accepts the terms, Barnes declared with a sense of formality. With a deliberate motion, Edward pushed the agreement across the table, its edges catching the light as it glided to a stop before the other party. Serena signed, her handwriting shaky, yet resolute, the words flowing from her pen without a glance at the page. I carefully signed my portion, then smoothly slid a separate envelope across to her, the weight of the moment hanging in the air between us. "What is this?" she asked, the very first words that had escaped her lips. "The passwords," I declared. "To the cloud storage house alarm, all that remains is to retrieve whatever you may have forgotten." At last, her gaze locked onto mine, probing for signs of fury or victory. In her search, she appeared more adrift than I had ever witnessed before. "It was never about the money," I murmured softly. "It could have been much more straightforward." Barnes gently placed his hand on her elbow, encouraging her to rise. With the envelope tightly grasped in her hand, she stepped away, her gaze fixed ahead, never daring to glance back. Half a year passed and I parted ways with the house on Victory Drive. Countless vacant spaces, an abundance of memories that refused to be erased. A young family with twins had just taken ownership, and they were enchanted by the wraparound porch and the hydrangeas that lined the stone path. In my new downtown loft, just a stroll away from my firm's office, I embraced simplicity by purchasing minimal furniture and holding on to fewer possessions. Naomi guided me in transforming my aunt's inheritance into a foundation dedicated to providing architectural scholarships for children who have lost their parents. The inaugural recipient was a 17-year-old girl hailing from South Georgia whose essay on creating spaces that promote healing struck a chord with the selection committee. Naomi remarked that Elaine would have truly cherished her when we presented the scholarship. Often my thoughts drifted to my aunt, her pragmatic insight. She firmly believed that the act of crafting something meaningful demanded a delicate balance of foresight and watchfulness. One afternoon, as I gathered the mail in the lobby of my building, an envelope caught my eye, its surface bare of any return address. Within the envelope lay a check for precisely $89,275, accompanied by a succinct note: the remainder of my debt. It's about more than just the money. No signature, no changes required. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I strolled down to the riverfront, a place where Serena and I had shared dreams of launching a joint venture. A sanctuary for wellness that I envisioned creating. She would take action, a dream that had withered away long before our union ever took place. As I perched on the bench, my gaze followed the slow procession of cargo ships gliding by, the check nestled securely in my pocket. Tomorrow, I shall deposit it into the foundation account. Yet another scholarship, a fresh opportunity to create something that could endure. As I sat there, my phone suddenly buzzed, drawing my attention to a message from Calvin. "Is dinner still set for 7? I'm bringing along that architect I spoke of." As I cast my eyes upon the watch on my wrist, there was just enough time to stroll home, slip into something more suitable, and make my way to the restaurant. In that fleeting moment, a choice emerged to embrace whatever lay ahead with an open heart. As I journeyed onward, I sent a reply and paused to confront the twilight that enveloped me. At times, the most powerful reaction to betrayal isn't one of vengeance. Rather, it lies in the act of reconstruction.